Good day. Today I will present the progress of our game, Whispers in the Dark. Our game is a 2D side-scrolling psychological horror game made using Godot. The player wakes up inside an abandoned building and explores different rooms while discovering memories and strange events happening in the place. At around 60% completion, the core gameplay was already working. The player can walk and interact with doors and objects. The player can move from room to room using doors and spawn points. We also added dialogue events that help the story and give hints about what happened inside the building. We also work on the sound design to make the game scarier. We added background ambient sound that plays in every room. This makes the building feel alive and not empty while the player explores. We added footstep sounds when the player walks. This makes movement feel real and make the player more careful, especially during those tense moments. We also added a door creaking sound when opening doors. It makes entering a new room feel slow and uncertain because the player does not know what is inside. For special encounters, we use sudden and distorted sounds to alert the player that something is wrong, even before they see it. Overall, the sound design helps create fear and tension because horror is not only about what the player sees, but also what the player hears. We also improved the dialogue system to help the story better. Before, the dialogue only appeared as small text above the player's head. It looked like the character was just thinking, but it was hard to read and easy to miss. Now we change it into a full dialogue box that appears on the screen. This makes the text clearer and easier for the player to understand. The player can now focus on the message and not just on movement. The dialogue is used to give hints, memories, and reactions to the environment. When the player enters a certain rooms or interact with objects, the character comments on what they see and feel. This helps guide the player without directly telling them what to do. The purpose of the dialogue is not only to storytelling but also guidance. Instead of tutorials, the game uses the character's thoughts and memories to teach the player how to survive and what to expect in the building. The Watcher is a psychological horror encounter and not a chasing enemy. It suddenly appears near or behind the player and simply stands still. It does not walk or attack normally, which makes the situation uncomfortable and tense. When the Watcher appears, the atmosphere changes and the player receives a warning not to move. The player must stay completely still for a few seconds until the entity disappears. If the player moves during the event, it can trigger a negative consequences, such as a scare. The Watcher also reacts to the player's progress. The more doors the player opens, or the more keys the player collects, the more active the Watcher becomes. It will appear more often and will remain in the room for a longer time, making the game more stressful as the player continues exploring. The purpose of the Watcher is to create fear through tension instead of running away. The player must control their movement and remain calm. This teaches the players a survival rule through gameplay experience instead of direct instructions, making the encounter more memorable and stressful. The jump scare does not happen randomly. It is triggered only when certain conditions are met while the player is exploring. Because of this, the player feels safe at first, but the game can suddenly surprise them at unexpected moments. When a jump scare happens, the screen suddenly reacts and a loud sound plays. It is designed to shock the player and break the silence of the environment. This makes the player more alert and cautious in later exploration. The purpose of the jump scare is not only to scare the player once, but to create a lasting tension after experiencing it. The player becomes more careful when entering rooms and interacting with objects because they are unsure when it might happen again. We are also keeping the exact details secret so players can experience the full effect themselves.